nuclear, including modular nuclear reactors. But the most exciting may be fusion. Now, bear in mind, Isaac Newton believed in the Philosopher's Stone and thought that you could turn base metals into gold. So fusion is a great hope. It is a potential ace up our sleeve, but it'd be silly of me not to pretend that it's difficult. It offers unparalleled potential for clean power production, promising a future of inexhaustible energy that could unshackle us from hydrocarbons and make us truly self-sufficient and secure. But the technological hurdles are big. Fusion reactors must apparently sustain a temperature 10 times hotter than the sun, which, whether you use centigrade or, like me, prefer Fahrenheit, is nonetheless very hot. The containment of which requires magnets so strong that they could lift an aircraft carrier clean out of the ocean. We get one of those. That might make Mr. Putin's Navy find life rather difficult if we just pick it up with magnet. Anyway, reminds me of the, is it The Spy Who Loved Me, where Jaws gets lifted up by a magnet that picks his teeth. That wasn't in my official text, so I hope it doesn't make it too difficult to translate it. But over the decades, we have established ourselves as pioneers in fusion science. And as a country, our capability to surmount these obstacles is unparalleled. And I'm delighted to make an announcement about the step in that mission. We will build the UK's first prototype fusion energy plant in Nottinghamshire, replacing the West Burton coal-fired power station with a beacon of bountiful green energy. The plant will be the first of its kind, built by 2040, and capable of putting energy on the grid. And in doing so, it will prove the commercial viability of fusion energy to the world. It will create thousands of highly skilled, excellent. I think, and I hope somebody will clip that as a round of applause for the good people of West Burton in Nottinghamshire for what they are managing to do for this nation. So it could be an industry worth billions of pounds to the UK economy and position the UK to design, manufacture and export the first fleet of fusion plants, putting us in the vanguard of a market with the potential to be worth trillions of pounds a year. But in the meantime, we've got to have some energy in the meantime, and you realise we got some last week, because we got enough hot air from the Socialist conference to keep the turbines spinning for decades to come. You are kind. I mean, what a marvellous audience. You laugh at the most terrible jokes. I am very grateful. I have a penchant for terrible jokes. I hope there aren't too many more. But what we're talking about is environmentalism that is about prosperity, about opportunity, and not about lectures. Now, we've been having a discussion about shale gas, and I want to contextualise that, because I know not everybody is keen on it, and we have to get community support for shale gas. That is of fundamental importance. But Lord Dewbs wrote to my predecessor, he's the chairman of the Climate Change Committee, saying that shale gas can provide 2 to 63 grams per kilowatt hour of carbon dioxide equivalent less than from LNG being imported. What I mean, and that illustrates what I mean about intelligent net zero. It's about making decisions that reduce carbon but also make us more prosperous. Doesn't mean everything that I say is going to happen tomorrow, but it's about a program that makes sure we don't harm our industry so that we go green in ways that create rather than destroying prosperity. Because cheap energy is essential to a flourishing economy, but in a way it's the foundation of a flourishing economy. There's more to do, so that's why we are looking at supply-side reforms that go much further. We've already at this conference announced that the definition of small and medium-sized enterprises will expand from 250 employees to 500. Thank you. One more person agrees. This is great. I mean, this is absolutely marvellous. It's so good. I get one person to agree, and then some of you join in. So the more of that, the better. This is what we need at a Conservative conference. And I know you've all been here for hours, probably gasping for a cup of tea. And I'm not going to detain you too much longer. But thank you to the gentleman over there who is delighted that we're going up to 500 rather than 250 employees for a small and medium-sized enterprise, extricating them from a host of regulatory burdens, including costly non-financial reporting requirements, which are simply paper shuffling. Well, in my case, not so much paper as parchment, but then I have to stop. But the structural reforms that we're about to deliver include the Brexit Freedoms Bill. The Brexit Freedoms Bill is a fantastic piece of legislation, defining constitutional piece of legislation that will remove the dead hand of EU laws from our statute book finally. There are over 2,400 EU laws that will be amended or appealed, and any EU regulation which remains will no longer apply to these SMEs of up to 500 employees, and thanks to this Prime Minister, we're going to get it done by the end of 2023. It is full speed ahead. This will take more businesses out of the clutches of overbearing regulation, freeing the British economy further and making us more competitive. But we've also got to deal with strikes. We've got to keep Britain moving. Isn't that what it says somewhere up here? Yes. And we've got to keep Britain moving by making it harder to have strikes that bring the nation to a halt. So the Prime Minister promised in her campaign that we would legislate for minimum service levels for essential services to ensure that the modernisation of our economy is not held to ransom by union militancy. And bear in mind, Owen Jones came up to me today and had a go at the funders of the Tory party. The funders of the Tory party don't buy the right to have a say in the leadership, do they? When the Socialist Party, they hold the Socialist Party to ransom, these unions, and they also want to try and hold the country to ransom. So the minimum service levels will make that harder, and we will be making that bill a reality soon. And it is a great... and if I may use a rude word, it is a great modernisation. But we also need to improve R&D. My department, the department I now lead, spends billions of pounds of taxpayers' money each year on R&D, and that must be a focus for value for money and turning our innovations into inventions. We're doing that with nuclear technology, but we need to make sure that every pound spent is delivered, and I'm delighted that ARIA has such good and strong leadership and will be able to help ensure that we turn seed capital in R&D into real investment value for the nation. Ladies and gentlemen, we know these are difficult times, and historic mistakes on energy policy have led us to where we are. But it's always the Conservatives who are best at dealing with difficult situations and make us take those tough decisions that aren't necessarily immediately popular. And this doesn't matter whether it's in nuclear or in shale or in deregulation. Cheap energy and supply-side reforms will provide us with economic growth. And the pressure of difficult times is forcing us in the direction where we need to go. You, ladies and gentlemen, are so fundamental as advocates and ambassadors for that because you are the Toryest of the Tory. And you know how the country should be governed, and it's why we need your support. We, together, have a nation-defining mission to complete, and I rely on you to complete it.
Well, hello there, I'm Michelle Dewberry. It is now 6:15, and that you were just watching and listening to there was Jacob Rees-Mogg, of course, our business secretary, speaking to many people in the room, the Toryest of the Tories there. I thought it was quite an empty room. What did you think? He was saying a few different things. The job of the government to protect people, he says. He was also talking about the faddish Islington Party, the Labour Party. I'm looking to my left because we'll be getting into quite a few of the bits that Jacob Rees-Mogg said in just a couple of minutes. Did you see as well, though, one of the main headlines from the Tory Party conference today was the U-turn on the 45p tax cut. It was cut basically to stop the distraction of that tax cut, but it ended up being a big distraction and pretty much all anyone is talking about when it comes to the conference today. So I want to know from you, do you think that U-turn was the right one, keeping that 45% tax rate? Right decision or wrong? And if you're watching, look at this. I'll show you this beautiful luxury Victorian country mansion. Oh, yes, look at that. If you're watching that, what do you think? I'm watching that thinking, oh, I want to get married. So I do. And I want to get married there. What about you? Well, if you want to get married there, you'll be in for a hard job because the weddings there are being cancelled because that is the latest hotel to be used to put up people who have crossed the channel. Now, there surely isn't a person in the land who thinks that all of this is not out of control. Suella Braverman thinks that she has got the answer to this. Apparently, it's all about making the burden of proof for those people crossing the channel higher. So, for example, if they say they are a victim of slavery, they now have to prove it. What do you think? Is that going to is that the answer we need? Finally get a grip on that? You tell me. And in the meantime, I'll be dreaming of a weekend at a hotel like that. Right, to get into some of those stories tonight, I've got my panel. Giles Kenningham is a political and communications consultant and the former head of press in David Cameron's Number 10. And Scarlett Maguire is the former advisor to the Labour Party, also known as the faddish Islington... What did he call it? The Islington...
It's very, very strange when the leader doesn't even come from Islington.
He says you destroyed the steel industry then. So I want your thoughts on some of that. But you know the drill on Dewbs and Co, don't you? It's about you at home as well. I want your thoughts on everything tonight. 45p, the Tory conference. Should you have been there? I've had a couple of people already email me tonight saying that you are Tory party members. You were supposed to be going there today and you didn't. Why not? I'm intrigued to know your answers to that. Get in touch with me, GBViews at gbnews.uk, or you can tweet me at GBnews. Now, I'm just going to cut straight to the chase. I'm going to start with you, I think, Scarlett.
Right.
Tory party conference in Birmingham. This whole 45p situation has dominated. It's been a massive distraction. We've heard now from Kwasi Kwarteng, it's official, that has now been dropped, so as not to prove more of a distraction. I personally think it's all a little bit ridiculous. I think if you make that decision, go hard, go home. He should have stuck with it. I think the U-turn was a mistake. What do you think?
I think the U-turn was essential. I mean, it was completely... It was a stupid thing to do, that you say, we're going to make things easier for the richest people, and then you say, and we won't guarantee that we're going to upright benefits in line with inflation. And of course, they don't call it this, but we're going to make some public spending cuts. So it was crazy. I mean, it was a crazy thing to do. And actually, the worst thing is that those people were absolutely furious because, you know, they have mortgages, they work in finance quite often, the very rich. I mean, they lost more money in the crash last week when the pound fell. I mean, people's mortgages have doubled, you know. I mean, people who thought they had a mortgage 3 weeks ago, it's been taken back. So actually, it was a complete disaster. It was badly thought out. It was unfunded. But it is too little too late. And so now you've got people like you saying he should never have U-turned, and people like me saying, but we're still in the same boat because he's only saved $2 billion and they've just pushed the boat out.
Yeah, I don't think he should have U-turned. I think the policy, which I'm an advocate of, I don't like high taxes. I would have absolutely supported it at 40p. I would have gone a bit further actually as well, and I would have reinstated some of the personal allowance for higher earners in that additional tax bracket. But where I agree with you is I think the timing of this was frankly bizarre. But I do think, though, Giles, if you're going to do that, if you're going to decide for whatever reason that is the policy route that you want to go down, then have some kahunas about you and stick with it.
I think you're right there. It was the timing of this, you know. They didn't need to rush out this so-called partial mini-budget 10 days ago. They could have waited, done it in November, built up a consensus and not spook the markets. We know that really people hate big surprises, so this is the problem here. He hasn't said how he was going to pay for it. And that's the issue. Now you've got this sort of exercise in damage limitation going on. This was the whole problem here. There was a rush to get something out the door, and the Tories have basically sort of ripped through all their political capital at breakneck speed. Now, most governments have this first 100 days honeymoon period. Liz Truss's has gone after 2 or 3 weeks, which means now she's going to have a lot less political leeway and a lot less leverage with the party. Everything comes under the microscope 100 times more, and everything becomes a lot more difficult.
So what should she have done then? Waited?
Yeah, they should have waited. They should have said, how are we going to pay for this? Because basically, essentially, what you got was a partial stroke mini budget without saying where the savings were coming from, and they were unfunded, so it spooked the markets. They could have waited. There was no need to do this as soon as they got into government. They could have done this in November, built up a consensus around this, showed how they were going to pay for it, showed where the savings were. You've now got a situation where they're having to backfill and say, oh, look, we're looking for some savings to actually justify this. In the meantime, you have a lot of destabilising speculation going on. You know, will benefits rise in line with inflation? Where the cut's going to fall? All of that's incredibly destabilising, but also distracting for a government which is trying to chart, you know, a new course.
Yeah, and it's the timing of this for me. This is what I just find really bizarre, because it's like, you know, you guys are advisors in this kind of political sphere. I am not. But then I just think, no offence to you lot, but how good are political advisors? Because surely any political advisor worth their salt would be saying to the likes of Kwasi Kwarteng and Liz Truss, listen, my friend, little piece of advice for you. Timing is not good. So what are you lot doing as advisors?
Timing is everything in politics. It's not just what you say, it's when you say it. It's like one of the, rule number one. So, yeah, and the thing about this was sadly an unenforced error. They didn't have to do this. They could have waited.
But where's the advisors? This is what I don't get.
But what both Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng are famous for is not taking advice. Is they don't listen. If you disagree with them, you're wrong. Right, so you don't have really good advisors like I presume Giles was, who said, "No, David, this is a really stupid thing to do." But I think it's very different. I mean, I've worked for people, and I go, "This is complete madness," and they don't like it, and you explain why, and then you have an argument, and then you have a discussion, and you come out somewhere. But both Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng are really well known for not listening. I
mean, I would challenge. I think they are right to challenge the orthodoxy of Whitehall. They're right to challenge the status quo. Things can't remain as they are, but it's the way they've gone about it. As I said, you have to build a consensus before you do these things.
Do you?
People don't like... I do think you have to build a consensus because also, especially with the markets, rightly or wrongly, don't spook people. People hate a surprise. Lay the ground first, warm them up to it, and there'll be less of this shock because all of this has come down to the fact of the unknown. So how are we going to fund this? Where the savings is going to come? Where's the axe going to fall?
See, I don't necessarily agree with you about the consensus. A lot of people in the cabinet, for example, I think there's a lot of people in politics that all they really care about is their own job. So what they do is they kind of will sit there and go, how do I personally keep my job
position.
Yeah, at the next election? So they don't sit there and think, what is best for this country? What is best for, I don't know, whatever policy it is. They literally sit there and go, how can I keep my job?
And this is where they should be applauded because they could have taken the easy option and stay with the status quo. It comes down to the execution. You're right, there are people in politics...
I'm not celebrating that, by the way. I'm saying it's a bad thing.
Well, no, but I'm saying there are people in politics who just are interested in sort of maintaining the status quo and not upsetting anyone. And there's no point in being there. You're there to change things, you're there to reform things, especially, given the world we live in, which is being hit by continual levels of disruption, especially industry. You need people who are going to take chances and who are going to actually go out on a limb. But like I said, it come back to the same thing. It just wasn't executed properly.
But actually, I mean, the whole idea behind it, I mean, Rishi Sunak has been... How many clips have been shown on how many television stations of him saying, if they do this, there will be a run on the markets. If they do this, the pound will crash. And actually, he knew that this was fantasy economics, right? That's what's so scary, is the two people in charge of economics in this country put out what they refused to call a budget because they refused to let anybody else look at it. I mean, as she said, the Cabinet did not know about the 45p.
But why do they have to? If I was the Prime Minister of this country and I needed to get things done and we had a dire situation in this country, I would perhaps lead this country, I wouldn't spend all of my time talking to the people within my team who essentially I'm their boss. Why would I need to walk around consulting all the members of my cabinet on all the decisions?
Because listening to people, actually, you could have a number of them saying this is going to spook the markets. I mean, this was so predictable. It was, as soon as he'd finished speaking, you knew the OBR hadn't done it. This was unfunded tax cuts. The market didn't know it was going to happen. And optically, I mean, in political terms, what they did was crazy, right? I mean, they could have just done the energy cap, right, which was really, really essential. I mean, we had a whole summer of playing games and no government and nobody saying what the energy prices were going to be and what they were going to do. We then knew, and Kwasi Kwarteng could have announced that, and then in a budget, he could... There was no... It was just crazy. But why, you say, on the one hand, people earning over £150,000 should pay less tax, and on the other hand, people who only work 12 hours a week will have their benefits sanctioned if they don't put it up to 15. It seems mad.
Well, this, to your point, you had to put it in an overall package and explain how everything was going to be affected, because now you've got a partial view, which the media and the public are going, well, what's going to happen here, what's going to happen there? So that's the real problem now. You know, because now you've got, you know, I was speaking to some teachers the other day and they're like, oh, we're looking at going on strikes here, because how is it fair that the top earners earn this, you know, we're not having a pay rise? You've got to do everything in its entirety and explain it and all add and you know, and show that it adds up.
But wasn't a lot of this, so the way I saw a lot of all this stuff, was it was the Tories trying to re-establish themselves as the Tories, because many people watching this over the last kind of months or so will say there's no difference really between, say, Labour and the Tories. The lines of policy which would really have kind of defined this is a Tory policy in government, this is a Labour policy in government, that all merged. So for me, I mean, I listened to Rees-Mogg there saying, you know, in this room you've got the Toryest of the Tories, the bluest of the blues. To me, what I felt was it was the Tories trying to say, right, we're back. We are the party of business, aspiration, wealth creation, da-da-da-da-da. This is who we are. Kind of trying to re-energise, if you like, their base.
Yeah, and once again, like, the idea is not a bad idea. It's just the way it was executed. You're right. I mean, I'm all for lower taxes. There is plenty of fat which can often be cut in government without affecting frontline services, but they needed to explain that as part of the package.
I'm not sure there's a lot left. But really importantly, I mean, they haven't got a mandate for this, because it is absolutely clear that, I mean, Jacob Rees-Mogg might talk about the Islington Labour, but I mean, what the Tories are concerned with is the financial district of the City of London. It's the City of London. And where is the levelling up? Where's the levelling up if you're going to make more cuts in public services, if you're not going to uprate benefits as you promised? I mean, there is a real problem about what they're going to do, because it seems, I mean, Jake Berry, who's the party chair, when asked about, you know, people who weren't earning very much, he said, well, they just get more jobs. They just work longer hours. As though, I mean, I was talking to somebody from Wrexham this morning and she said, find me the jobs. Everybody's working as hard as they can. Many people in Wrexham have two jobs to keep them going, to keep their children, you know, fed. I mean, it's just, it seems to be, I mean, this government and the way Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng behaved, they were just completely completely out of touch with real people.
Really?
Having said all this, I think all these rush to write her political obituary, the political obituary of the Tories, is way too fast. I think they can still recover this situation. I think what you've seen is not a Labour revival, but a Tory collapse in the poll. Their mid-term polls, I remember when I worked for David Cameron, we were double digits behind and we came back to win a general election. So they can still recover this, but she's obviously given herself a lot less breathing space. And to your point, Michelle, let's hope it doesn't stop her from being radical in other areas. That she can get spooked by this.
You were a former advisor to Cameron, so if you were a current advisor to Truss, what would you be saying to her?
I think, you know, for the speech on Wednesday, really important that she sets out the reason why the status quo is not acceptable, chart a path forward. I think there's got to be a radical domestic agenda set out. You know, that has been stopped by COVID, by the Ukraine war. but really show how that's going to work. And I think they need to bring forward the so-called the fiscal statement in November earlier to show how we're going to pay for everything, to reassure people. So they're going to have to move quicker now.
Mm-hmm. And do you think she can pull it back?
I think it could be like Black Wednesday was for John Major. I think it's very, very difficult once a Conservative Party has shown that they've lost credibility with the economy. It's very, very difficult to bring it back.
Do you reckon the Tories can win the next election? In fact, actually, let me ask you, I think it was Nadine Dorries that I saw today, was hinting that there perhaps should be another general election.
Hinting? Demanding is the word.
I think
What do you
the last
think
thing
to
the
that?
country needs is another election. Give her 2 years. But I think absolutely she can. So far, I think Keir Starmer has been pretty anodyne. He hasn't been an electrifying leader. He's been helped out by the Tories, by a lot of sort of unenforced errors by the Tories. But yeah, I think it's all to play for. And for Labour to get back in the next election, really you've got to see them making inroads in places like Scotland and in regions of the north where a lot of their associations are moribund. And I think that will take 2 cycles.
No, I agree that the 33% lead was about Liz Truss. I mean, it was not all Keir Starmer. But actually, I was in Liverpool last week at the Labour Party conference. These were people preparing for government. There was no question. It was really, really serious. No unfunded. I mean, the discipline on the shadow cabinet about what one is allowed to say.
I think there's a bit of hubris popping in, because I noticed Keir Starmer tweeting when I'm Prime Minister, not if. Seemed a bit presumptuous to me. We would never have done that in opposition, I have to say.
I didn't realise that. Yeah. I didn't realise that he'd done that, and yeah. I think you always have to say if, and he normally does say every vote has to be earned, and he's absolutely right.
What about do you think there's going to be a Labour Lib Dem coalition? That's probably your easiest route to power, or most likely route to power.
Well, I mean, at the moment, there doesn't have to be a Labour Lib Dem coalition. I mean, at the moment, it looks like that the red wall is falling like dominoes.
That poll, but
no, I'm not talking about the 33%.
But he's not ruled it. But he's not ruled it out, has he? Ruled out an SNP coalition, but not a Lib Dem coalition.
But I think, nobody rules anything out, right? Because what?
Well, he's ruled out an SNP coalition.
Well, you cannot have a coalition with a party that wants to destroy the union when you're a unionist party. Yeah. I mean, there is absolutely no question about that. I mean, David Cameron had a coalition with the Lib Dems, right? But I don't think it'll have to happen. I mean, I certainly think that the Lib Dems will improve, and I think that the Tories do have a lot of southern discomfort in seats. Look at Tiverton. In seats where Labour would never stand a chance, the Lib Dems could win. But I mean, Labour is out to win the seats they need to win the election.
God help us, the Labour Party, Charlotte. They can't even define what a woman is.
I'm so bored of this one.
Well, you shouldn't be bored of it. You should be energised by it, and you should be trying to get within that party and sort it all out. Because when you hear stupid things like that, and the Labour Party, it turns off a lot of people. When you hear Labour MPs turning around and saying that someone is superficially black because they don't fit the
She was completely wrong.
narrative.
She was completely wrong. She was racist, and she had the whip removed within an hour of them finding out.
She still thinks it, though. Whether or not she was punished and had whip removal irrelevant, that is the thought process.
Yeah, but come on, there are Tories. You have groping Tories who are still
You have groping Labour people, don't you?
You have people like Christopher Pincher, who is still has the whip, right? I mean, there is absolutely no question that neither of the parties have all their MPs are perfect. No question about that. On Rupa Huq, what she said was racist. It was undoubtedly racist, and quite rightly, she had the whip removed.
Ugh, what a shambles. Do you know what I think when I listen to all this, everyone? I just think we all deserve better, quite frankly. I think so many of our politicians right now are just low-rent randoms. I don't think they're good enough. I don't think they're the right calibre of people to lead this country. I don't think they've got the balls to do it. I think too many people in politics are filled with self-interest. I think they're too influenced by idiots on Twitter. Lots of things that go on in the media. They don't stand firm, they don't hold their positions, they flip-flop around. God help this country, that's what I say. What do you say? Gerald says, the Tories have become a joke, and a bad one at that. He says, Labour will win the next general election by a landslide. He goes on to say, give us a general election now and let's get it over with. Goodness me, not a general election now, please. George says, all of this was a test and the government has failed. Boris has showed his weakness again and again, and look what happened to him. Diana says that Liz should not have done this U-turn. Keith says, Michelle, this U-turn has been done to death today. Give it a rest. Owen says, you ask right or wrong. Read this tax situation. It's wrong. Carlton says, I couldn't care less if the 45p rate is cut or not, but the U-turn just proves that Liz Truss is weak and the attack dogs will rip her to bits and topple her government. It's all quite depressing, isn't it? And by the way, did you see all the protesters outside of the conference in Birmingham? What's the matter with you lot, honestly? Why can't you respectfully disagree? Why have we got a situation where you've got MPs having to have police protection to go into a party conference? I think it's a disgrace, and if you're one of those people that do that, you need to get home, get in front of a mirror and have a serious look at yourself and grow up a little bit, quite frankly. Anyway, going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to have a look at a beautiful hotel, beautiful so it is, that you won't be able to stay in or get married in anytime soon, I don't think, because it's one of the latest 4-star hotels to now house the people that across the channel. I mean, I'm almost laughing because it has now become so ludicrous that what can you do? However, Suella Braverman seems to think that she has got the answer. Has she? We'll look at it in just a couple of minutes.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around. With all the biggest topics and guests, you will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness, brilliant.
And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Hello there, welcome back to Dewbs & Co with me, Michelle Dewberry. Keeping us company until 7 o'clock this evening are my panel. Good evening and welcome back to both of you. Giles and Scarlett keeping me company. Lots of you have been getting in touch on that last comment, by the way, that last topic about the Conservative Party conference. I'm asking as well, I'm fascinated, are any of you out there Tory party members? Were you supposed to go to the conference and didn't? Because I spied quite a few empty chairs in those rooms, I've got to say. Were you one of them? And if so, tell me why. I've been asking as well whether or not Liz Truss was right to do the U-turn. Got to say, the overwhelming sense from you guys is that yes, it was right. The timing, in your minds, was completely wrong to announce that policy in the first place. Many of you were enjoying, by the way, the Jacob Rees-Mogg speech that you heard at the start of the show. A few of you, Con, for example, says he is a PM in waiting. Lots of you, Steve says Jacob Rees-Mogg for PM, please, Michelle. Brains, backbone and values. Ron says, why on earth isn't he the Prime Minister? He's got more intelligence and get up and go than the combined of all of them, all of the Tory MPs put together. There you go. Jacob Rees-Mogg, should he have been our Prime Minister? What do you think to that? Tell me. Right, we'll move on, shall we, to a different topic, one that gets you talking frequently, I have to say. The Home Secretary has said that she will now tighten the rules for migrants who claim that they are victims of modern slavery. This is, of course, in a bid to kind of stop the out-of-control, let's face it and call it what it is, the Channel crossings. Nearly 33,000 people have crossed the Channel so far this year, which is a record number. I mean, I need to say it as it is. I do have to say, in my view, Scarlett, a lot of these people, in my view, seem to be playing the system.
Well, I think one of the things we have to remember is there is no safe legal route to claim asylum. You can't take a plane. You can't. There's nowhere to get. The only way that people can claim asylum is at the moment by crossing the Channel. That's that, or coming in, you know, in trucks. I mean, it's if we had a decent asylum system that also worked fast. I mean, that's one of the most disgusting things. Is these people come over. The reason they're put up in hotels and in army barracks and wherever is because it takes years to process them. So we have a Home Office that isn't fit for purpose, as John Reid, the Labour person, said many years ago. It doesn't work properly. I mean, what we should be doing is we should be doing asylum claims properly, and we should also be. I mean, you know, we've now got Afghans coming over, Afghans who you know should have been allowed to come here properly, seeking asylum. We've got them crossing the Channel. There is something really wrong.
Yeah, hang on, because the majority of people that are crossing the Channel, let's be clear anyway, everyone that's doing that is crossing from France, which is a safe country in the first place. So that's my first point. My second point is they're mainly now Albanians and things like that.
They're not mainly Albanians. There are some Albanians. They've always been mainly people from the Horn of Africa, people from Ethiopia, Eritrea, Somalia, from failed states. But I mean, the Afghans are now coming through. And what I'm saying is, what are we doing having Afghans having to cross the Channel to claim asylum?
But where are you getting
the question I don't understand in this debate, sorry to interrupt, is that what are the French doing?
Nothing.
Exactly.
That's
This is the
point.
point. No one seems to want to answer this question. France is a safe haven. You seek asylum or refugee status in the first safe haven you get to, whereas the French just like go over to the UK. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't take our fair share, but no one seems to be willing to have this debate. Like, what are they doing? There's a complete dereliction of duty from them. They just like go over to the UK. It's a soft touch.
They are taking a lot of asylum seekers.
But why is it so easy for them to come over?
As are the Germans, right? And actually, I mean, GB News did a thing about how difficult it is policing the Channel beaches, right? Because as soon as you move on, a boat comes. I mean, most of the people who come over have some links to Britain and speak English, right? That's why they want to come here and not France. It's not about being a safe country. But I am saying, what are we doing that we have not found a way of getting Afghan asylum seekers to come to Britain safely and claim asylum?
But we aren't, right? So this is one of the things I get confused about. You've said that there's no safe and legal routes.
Yeah.
But there are. The UK resettlement scheme is one, community sponsorship scheme another, mandate resettlement scheme. I haven't finished yet. Hang on. Refugee family reunion, the Afghan citizens resettlement scheme, the Afghan relocations and assistance policy, the immigration route for British national overseas status holders from Hong Kong. So there are.
So no, schemes. Hong Kong is not refugees, right? And the Afghan. I mean, most of the things you've named have closed, right? And the Afghan one, I mean, I think maybe there are 2,000. I mean, the numbers are really, really shocking.
So what's your answer then? So your answer is, create... So what's Labour's position on this? Let me start by that.
No, I don't. I think Labour and I are not in complete agreement. I think Labour is much more where you are, and they're worried about the small boats, and they're not as worried. I mean, they're against Rwanda. And think that the Rwanda flights shouldn't happen, but I just think we have to reform it and say. I mean, you know,
I think Rwanda's a great idea.
Yeah, I don't think it's a great idea. Because what you're saying is anybody who comes over will fly to Rwanda and they can never, ever claim asylum in Britain.
Yes, but then they'll get what they want if they're genuine asylum seekers, which is to be granted asylum in a safe country.
No, they want to claim asylum. I mean, people, you know...
finish your sentence, because I know what you was going to say.
They want to claim asylum in Britain because they've got links here.
What links?
Well, often the language, and often people are already here.
How many of these Albanians got links here? It's 80%. The Home Secretary's saying this stat of 80%.
80% of people crossing the Channel are not Albanian. I mean, it is just not true.
The Home Office is saying that.
They're not. What she's possibly saying is that 80% of the people claiming domestic
I can read the quote. I'll read the quote, the direct quote, so we're not misquoting her. She says, "Now, what we see is a majority of people coming here from Albania. Some 80% who are coming across on small boats are claiming to be victims of modern slavery." That's her words quoted directly.
Yeah, so I think, because I talked to your producer and said she's completely wrong about 80% of the people coming in small boats, and he said...
How do you know?
Because I've looked at Home Office figures.
What? So you're standing on the coastline in Kent with your clipboard and your pen.
I've looked at Home Office statistics.
Recent ones.
In the summer. Where the whole Albanian thing started, what she's saying, actually, is that 80% of the people claiming modern slavery are Albanian. She's not saying, because it is absolutely not true, that 80% of the people crossing are Albanian. There's no question.
So I do not worry. Where's my pictures of the hotel? Can I put these pictures back up on this screen, please? Because this is, I tell you, it irritates me. I'm going to say it as it is. We all sit there, you know, lamenting the cost of living crisis that we're in right now. Look at this beautiful, this is a 4-star hotel, describes itself as a luxury Victorian country mansion in Lincolnshire that has now been used to put up people that have crossed the Channel, or refugee families, whatever the official terminology is that I'm supposed to use these days. How can you look at that? I think that's OK.
I've said I think they should be processed much faster. I mean, I think the
and
whole...
put where?
What?
And put where?
Well, you can put them there for 3 or 4 weeks. The whole problem is that people seeking refugee status can be here for 5 years and they're not allowed to work, right? I mean, it is madness, our system. I mean, I think we should do it much more efficiently, and I think we should say, you're a refugee, you're not a refugee, you go. I mean, it's fine if they're not refugees, but I actually think that we should, you know, there are masses of people in refugee centres that have been waiting years and years to
I can tell you there'll be masses of people that are sitting watching telly looking at that hotel who can't even afford their stuff at the moment, who think, actually, I'm one step ahead, I'm one step away from going over to France and getting on a boat if that's where I'm going to end up, take some of their financial problems away, maybe. Giles... You're laughing, but
no, sorry, I was laughing at him. Not laughing at you.
Yeah, what's he done?
I was waiting to hear what he was going to say.
Go on, Giles, you tell me. I'm ranting on this because it irritates me, I have to say.
No, and clearly speed is the big issue here, and I think also there is an element, and I think the Legatum Institute today talked about the UK, EU and France setting up joint asylum processing centres to combat illegal crossings, and crucially taking their share of the burden here, because I do fundamentally believe the French are far too easy to say, look, come over here. Now, I'm all for skilled immigration, controlled immigration, but clearly we haven't got things under control. And also, I think at times the left do try and shut down having an honest, open conversation. It's not racist to have to be against unlimited immigration. We have an infrastructure in this country which can't cope. And you have had a situation, Home Secretary's pointed out, where you've had convicted murderers, paedophiles coming out of prison and trying to use the Modern Slavery Act as an excuse to stay in this country, which, quite frankly, is totally unforgivable and unacceptable.
So you've told me what your solution to this is, to have a better processing system for asylum claims. Yeah?
And actually, it would be for people to be able to claim asylum in their home country. So you can go to the British Embassy and claim asylum because you're worried about being killed in Somalia or Ethiopia or Afghanistan, frankly.
Would you put any caps on the number?
Well, the thing about refugees is we have to take them, right? That's all.
What, an unlimited number?
If you have proper refugees, it's never an unlimited number, right?
Why? Because the West can't help poking their nose in everywhere and creating displacements everywhere. So actually, when you say it's not an unlimited number, we see conflicts popping up all the time, and people wanting to move out, move on.
Well, I mean, but don't you think that we owe an awful lot of people in Afghanistan refugee status that we didn't give them? That we should have got them out. We should have got them out really early. I mean, I do think that where we've caused chaos, that you're right. That actually, I'm afraid that all the British, the people who were interpreting, all the people that we said that we'd help in Afghanistan, yeah, they have a right to come here.
And just briefly, what do you think then about this whole kind of burden of proof, being raised so that people have got to show more, prove more that they are the kind of, say, victims of modern slavery or whatever it is that they claim?
100% agree with it, because as I say, clearly there is this loophole in the system which is being exploited by people coming out of prison. So actually people shouldn't have any issue with it if they are a genuine asylum seeker.
And where are you on that burden of proof?
I would like to know how many people coming out of prison actually successfully claimed modern slavery rather than tried to claim. I mean, you know, you do have to have some proof for modern slavery. What she's talking about really is the people coming over on their boats. And I mean, what worries me is that, I mean, Theresa May put through the modern slavery thing, and it was bitterly fought over, and Theresa May absolutely ensured that it was not too strong. And I just think to water it down some more, what worries me is that we're just stopping people. And the modern slavery thing of you know, I mean, women being trafficked here to get to work as prostitutes, right? I mean, you do need help. I mean, you know, we need to stop it, right? But also, those people are, you know, that is modern slavery.
Yeah, do you know, I absolutely, to come back to your point, I think that everyone in genuine support should be helped by whatever means that is, whichever countries it is that's offering that support. My problem with all of this is not those people that need genuine help and support, it's the chancers that have realised that actually look at the life that you can get here, a beautiful, luxurious 4-star hotel. It's the people that are using social media as almost like some recruitment tool, a sales channel to try and recruit paying customers, because that is what these people have become. It's awful. This whole industry, and this is a multi-million pound industry now, and it cannot be beyond the wit of man to try and stop this. And the other multi-million pound industry, by the way, that's come off the back of all this, is all the legal stuff, all the lawyers that have been making an absolute fortune right now on some of these cases. Tell me your thoughts on it all. And do you have the answers? Because it's really easy, isn't it, to sit here and criticise, but what are the answers then? Why is nobody doing anything about it? Pete says, Michelle, this is very simple. Anyone that tries to cross this way should just be sent back to France. Well, it can't be that simple, Pete, or else it would be happening, wouldn't it? And it's not. Jerry is completely against this whole kind of raising the threshold for proving your kind of story, if you like. He says, once you start reversing the principles of justice so that the immigrants have to prove their innocence, where do you stop? Due to government creep, he says, it'll be you next that's having to prove your innocence in whatever it is. Do you think that? Do you think that it'll be a slippery slope? I don't know. Tell me. Christine says, I have never understood why asylum seekers cannot be allowed to work. I don't know.
I completely agree with her. I think it's ridiculous.
Well, Scarlett thinks it's ridiculous. You certainly think it's ridiculous. The person that's just written in, Christine. What do the rest of you think about it? I'm going to leave you to ponder that and cut across now to Lawrence Fox, who will be joining us in about 5 minutes or so. Lawrence, good evening. What have you got for us?
Hi, Dewbs. Nice to see you back. Tonight we'll be discussing the observance of Awareness Months with the upcoming, well, the now started Black History Month. We will be talking U-turns and shenanigans at the Conservative Party conference and Fight Club with Conor Tierney, the bare knuckle boxer, on Talking Pints.
Oh, Fight Club. That sounds interesting. Lawrence, we'll see you at 7 o'clock. Look at the time. That is all we've got time for, Scarlett and Giles. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm very proud of myself, by the way, because keen watchers of Dewbs & Co will know that I was off last week. I almost didn't make it back, thanks to my airline cancelling my flight at the last minute and leaving me stranded. I can tell you, ladies and gents, stranded. No explanation whatsoever, leaving us to fork out for extra nights in hotels and all the rest of it. I was going to have a massive rant on what on earth is going on with service in companies right now in this country, but I ran out of time. I'll save that for another day. Have yourself a wonderful evening. Don't go anywhere because Lawrence Fox is up next. I'll see you tomorrow.
Hello, Alex Deacon here with your latest weather update. Some lively weather coming our way over the next few days. Wet weather spreading south tomorrow, although the southeast will stay dry and really quite warm under the influence of this large area of high pressure. But elsewhere, low pressure is slowly starting to take control. The isobars are squeezing together. These weather fronts have made for quite a wet day in western Scotland, and there's more rain to come here overnight. The rain easing for a time across Northern Ireland before more rain pushes in here through the early hours. That rain likely to be heavy and persistent across parts of western Scotland. And we do have a Met Office yellow warning in place. Could be some disruption, certainly a lot of spray and surface water on the roads. Bar a bit of drizzle in the south, most of England and Wales dry, and it will be a mild start to Tuesday. A wet start across much of Scotland and Northern Ireland, but quite quickly here, I suspect that rain will start to pull away. Certainly brighter skies for the afternoon across Scotland and Northern Ireland, but staying fairly dull and damp for most of the day over northwest England. That rain edging across Wales will be heavy over the hills into parts of the Midlands and southwest England by the end of the day. East Anglia, the southeast, stay under the influence of that high. Could get to 20 Celsius here with a bit of October sunshine. Feeling cooler than today, though, through this central slice where there'll be the cloud and the rain. That rain sticks around through tomorrow evening and then starts to push further north as a broader area of rain. This is an area of low pressure. You can see the swirl there starts to arrive for Wednesday. Not just a band of rain. This is going to bring some strong winds on Wednesday as well. A blustery day with some heavy rain in places. Some uncertainty just how strong those winds could be, but they could cause some disruption during Wednesday. We are looking at quite a broad area across northern Britain where there's the risk of 55 to 65 mile an hour gusts, but the chance that those winds could be even stronger in some locations. There is a warning in place.
Weekday afternoons on GB News, we've got the whole of the UK covered. From 12 to 3, it's GB News Day with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Gloria Di Piero. You'll get the very latest on everything that's been going on across our great nation.
And from 3 till 6, watch out for GB News Live with me, Patrick Christys. I'm not here to mess around with all the biggest topics and guests. You will always be up to date. GB News Day and GB News Live from 12 p.m.
Only on GB.